to talk about briefly in my Patreon exclusive portion is simply this. And some of my longtime followers and clients have heard me emphasize this before. I know a lot of you men, you single heterosexual men, hate being rejected. I know you do. No man likes being rejected. Let's put it that way. No man likes being rejected. But the thing is, if there's one thing that's worse, in my opinion, in the long run, than being rejected, there's at least one thing, in my opinion, that's worse than being rejected. And that's having a woman mislead you, manipulate you, string you along, exploit you, take advantage of you, and then dismiss you. That's when you're going to be the most bitter, resentful, and hateful towards a woman. It could be your ex-wife, it could be your former fiance, it could be your ex-girlfriend, or it could be just some other woman you know. But I'm telling you, trust me when I say this, that's 2, 3, 4, even 5 times worse than simply being rejected. And see, here's the thing. And if you carefully read my book, The Possibility of Sex, or listen to the audiobook version, you'll know. Even more so, the only way you can really prevent yourself from being manipulated by women is to put yourself face forward in front of, put yourself at risk to be rejected. You have to experience rejection, and more specifically, a quick, straightforward rejection to prevent yourself from being manipulated. That's what all you guys need to understand. See, in other words, the more you try to prevent yourself from being manipulated by women, prevent yourself from being rejected by women, the more efforts you make to avoid being rejected, which is what most guys who favor indirect verbal game attempt to do, the more you open the door for yourself to be misled, manipulated, exploited, taken advantage of, and just strung along. Trying to prevent and avoid rejection is one of the worst things you can do as a man. Period. And I'm not even joking when I say, we're being light. That is the honest to goodness truth. One of the worst things you can do with women, particularly women who have a highly manipulative nature and a highly materialistic nature, is to try to prevent them from rejecting you. You're hurting yourself rather than helping yourself. You want to put yourself in a position to be rejected. Because I'm telling you, man, women who are highly manipulative and highly materialistic and like to exploit men either for their non-sexual time, attention, and companionship, or exploit men for their financial resources and material possessions, they don't like to reject men. They really don't, at least not immediately. They don't like to reject men immediately or straightforwardly. What they want to do is they want to take advantage of you for a few days, a few weeks, or a few months first, and then dismiss you. And I'm telling you, that's the worst feeling in the world, is the feeling of knowing you got played by a woman. It is much worse to get played by a woman than to be immediately and straightforwardly rejected by a woman. It's happened to me at least a handful of times. I've gotten, in my younger years, I can name times in my younger years, at least minimum a handful of times where I had a woman play me. And I'm telling you, man, that is not a good feeling. That's where a lot of my wisdom came from, is women playing me. Even in recent years, I've had women attempt to do that, but because I have so much knowledge, wisdom, and insight, they weren't able to successfully do it. But yeah, you never want to be played by a woman. You're much better off being quickly and straightforwardly rejected by a woman. Who are the number one beta males that tend to get played by women? See, the first thing that sets you up to be played by a woman is when you become too quickly enamored by a woman's beauty and sex appeal. That's the first thing that's going to set you up to be played by a woman, manipulated by a woman, is when you're a guy that is too quickly become overly enamored by a woman's beauty and sex appeal. See, if you know that's you I'm talking about, you got to learn to keep that in check, man. You got to learn to keep that in check. In other words, to put it in another way, you got to learn how to treat 8s, 9s, and 10s the same way you would a 3, 4, or 5. I know for a lot of men that's easier said than done, but you got to learn how to do it, man. Because once women can sense that, because women, they know when men are quickly enamored by their beauty and sex appeal. Once a woman knows you're quickly enamored by her beauty and sex appeal, you gonna get played. That's when you open the door for yourself to get played. Number 2, as most of y'all should know, is when you have a profound fear of being criticized by women, insulted by women, or a fear of receiving just negative reactions from women in general. You're scared of confrontations with women, negative feedback from women. That's the second most time you're going to set yourself up to be played. That's when you're going to tend to become too cautious in your conversation skills, too polite, too lenient, too accommodating. And that's when you're going to set yourself up to be played. You're going to set yourself up to be played. So, number 1 is when you're going to set yourself up to be played is when you're too quickly enamored by women's beauty and sex appeal. Number 2 is when you're profoundly afraid of being criticized by them, insulted by them, or just generally receiving negative reactions, responses, and feedback from them. Third, similar to number 2, is when you're profoundly afraid of being rejected by women and or indefinitely ignored by women. When you're afraid of being rejected by women and or indefinitely ignored by women, you're going to open the door to get played. Again, I already mentioned that. The more you go out of your way to prevent being rejected by a woman or to prevent being indefinitely ignored by a woman, the more you set yourself up to be played. The more you set yourself up to be played. Yeah. The fourth most time you tend to set yourself up to be played is when you have ineffective or non-existent bullshit detector. See, I have a very exceptionally sensitive bullshit detector. A lot of men don't have that. They really don't. A lot of men don't know how to distinguish between people who are genuine, real, and authentic and people who are dishonest, disingenuous, and just generally full of shit. So that's the fourth most time you're going to set yourself up to be played, is when you just have either ineffective or non-existent bullshit detector. You don't know when a woman is feeding you a lot of bullshit. You don't know when a woman is feeding you a lot of bullshit. Pay attention to women's actions more than their words. Pay attention to their actions more than their words. Pay attention to their actions more than their words. And the fifth and final time you're going to set yourself up to be played by a woman, you're going to set yourself up to be played by a woman. The fifth most time you're going to put yourself in a position to be played is, as you've heard me mention before, is when you suffer too much from the effects of the Madonna horror complex. You suffer too much from the effects of the Madonna horror complex. In other words, you tend to be ignorant of women's sexually duplicitous ways. You tend to look at women as either totally prudish, monogamy-oriented good girls, or you tend to look at women as highly promiscuous sluts, and you don't leave any room for the shades of gray in between those two extremes. You don't leave any And that's the main reason why I wrote my book, Ooh, Say It Again, is to cover those shades of gray in between those two extremes. See, that messes up a lot of men, is when you either put women on one extreme. In respect to my book, Ooh, Say It Again, I rate women as either a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, or 5. A 5 would be a woman who's genuinely a prudish, strictly monogamy-oriented good girl. And a 1 would be a woman who's a very sexually liberated, highly promiscuous slut type, and she don't care who knows it. A lot of men in society, they tend to look at women as either 5s or 1s. 5s or 1s. And that's a mistake. And that's when you're going to get played by women. You can't ignore women who are 2s, 3s, and 4s. 2s, 3s, and 4s. And that's the whole purpose of my book, Ooh, Say It Again, is to break that down. So, those are the top 5 ways a heterosexual man, is going to most set himself up to be played by women, scammed by women, and generally exploited and manipulated by women. Again, to give a quick recap, would be number 1 is when you allow yourself to be too quickly enamored by a woman's level of beauty and sex appeal. You allow yourself to be too quickly enamored by a woman's level of beauty and sex appeal. Number 2, you tend to be profoundly afraid of being criticized by women, insulted by women, and just generally receiving negative reactions, responses, and feedback from women. Number 3, you have a profound fear of being indefinitely ignored by women and or rejected by women. Number 4 is when you have an ineffective or non-existent bullshit detector. In other words, you don't know how to identify women that are giving you signs that they are a combination of dishonest, disingenuous, and manipulative. And number 5 is you tend to suffer from the effects of the Madonna horror complex. You tend to look at women as either the proverbial good girl or the highly promiscuous slut, and you ignore the shades of gray in the middle between those two extremes. All right? Get it? Got it? Good. I will be having my second Patreon live stream for the month of January on Saturday, unless I change it. I might change it to Friday. I'll keep you posted if I do. But as of right now, it's going to be Saturday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. If I don't talk to you before then, I'll talk to you then. Take care. Peace.